Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast channel. My name is Jed. How are you doing? It's been a couple of days. I had a bunch of boring stuff to do, paperwork stuff to do, and I got that done. Hooray. So now we can get back to the good stuff. How can we use analogy to understand wisdom? Is where we are potentially going today. Exciting stuff. What have we covered so far? We have covered the archetypal analogy, which has 4 terms. We discovered that there are some fancy names. The regular version of the archetypal analogy, which is called the verse. It has you can flip either side. That's called the converse. In either of the sets, you can reach across. That's called the invertendo, and you can play around with those to find a whole bunch of combinations that you can organize into a little box or rectangle for this one. And you can find evidence of proportion, flow, balance, symmetry. Anything else that I'm missing? Which are all, of course, aesthetic elements or aspects of beauty. There is beauty in analogy if you expand out all its possibilities. We did the same with the mean analogy. Which, just quickly looking at my notes over here. However, with the mean analogy, you can only find 4 different versions or 4 different permutations. So it makes a lovely square. And we had a look at the different, the order, the balance, the dynamics, the symmetry, the harmony, the flow that can be found within that arrangement, making us wonder why it's so beautiful. And of course, it's that mean analogy, which is considered the most beautiful, that is used to understand the world of mind, the world we are wanting to move into, and the physical world or the physical cosmos. So, isn't it interesting that those that are interested in understanding what is this reality we're in and what is the higher reality of intelligence we can move into, they use mean analogy to understand that. And of course, it reminds us of that thing that we learnt during Socrates and Jesus, A Dialogue in Heaven, and you can check out that series on YouTube. The principle that only the most intelligent will be willing to understand and accept. As above, so below. As above, so below. Scope. So we could say perhaps there is a order, symmetry, balance, proportion, flow, dynamics existing in all of reality, such that we can find elements of the above that are reflected in the below. So, as a king cares for his subjects, so too can we understand what is lesser than that, a shepherd caring for a sheep. Which means we have, so long as we are using analogy, we can map our way up from what we do have access to. The fancy word for that is the antecedent. What we can see more easily stuff about sheep. And we can chart our way to what we are wanting to move into, of course. Being a ruler of our soul, ultimately, because as we looked at last time, rulership can have even one citizen. You are still a ruler. and that one citizen can be your own soul. So, isn't it interesting that the nature of reality follows this principle that allows for analogy? And we can wonder about how this is essential to creation itself. Does a painter have to create a painting that is like himself in some way? Is that a fundamental aspect of creation? And so, as we are learning to understand rulership by looking at what is more easy to understand, as a shepherd rules his sheep, so too a king rules his people, and even a philosopher rules his soul, perhaps. We can use that to understand our puzzle. Why is it that philosophers use this mean analogy to understand reality itself? In other words, is it the same principle behind as the physical world is to the metaphysical world? Is that what we're looking for? These new headphones I'm still not used to them yet. Okay, I'm going to keep messing with them. Hopefully they don't distract me too much. So, as the physical world is to the world of being, is that an analogy that we were given a teaser of when the book told us that philosophers use philosophers use analogy to understand the physical world and the metaphysical world? After all, isn't that what we're after? To move from the transitory world of becoming, the physical world that we perceive through our senses, to apprehend the eternal realm of being, experienced through mind, turning about to know itself, or ousia. Well, let's jump in. Oh, and by the way, when we looked at the mean analogy, we recognized that there are 4 permutations: the verse, the converse, where you flip either side, you flip your shoes on either side. You and your brother flip your shoes on either side of the room because you're wearing converses. So shepherd is to sheep becomes sheep is to shepherd. Invertendo of the mean analogy is always invertendo of the converse. So we say invertendo 2 applies to the mean analogy. Because the mean analogy is A is to B as B is to C. If you reached over A is to B, it's the same thing. You're just reaching the second instance of B when you reach over and take the other term. So, verse, converse, invertendo 2, and then you take that invertendo 2 and you flip the terms, and you have the fourth, final term, the converse of the invertendo. So those are fancy words, but it's important to have names. Here we go. That's what I was just talking about. Verse, A is to B is to C. Converse, flipping either of these 2 terms, there and there. Invertendo, from that converse, that B reaches over and takes that C. Goes B is to C. And that A reaches over to, that A reaches over to grab that B to give us this A is to B. And finally, the converse of that invertendo. Just nailing down in our minds these permutations. And then we looked at how we could find the different the flow, balance, order, dynamics, all that last couple episodes. Then we looked at how similes and metaphor work. You take that 4-term archetypal analogy and you use the word like and is to describe those relationships in that list. Oh, and we also looked at that square because some combinations don't work. That square that we have helps us understand which will work and which won't. Let's have a look at that on the board, just so we're all up to speed. It's been a few days for me. I want to jog my memory. Where's our square? Here we go. Shepherd is to sheep, as king is to subjects. And we saw this square shows us what works and what doesn't work. A shepherd along this line here is to a sheep as a king is to a subject. That works. Can you go the other way? A sheep is to the shepherd, follower, as the subjects are to their king. That works too. We're looking at the parallel lines and same directions on this. Oh my goodness, these headphones. Oh no, they're too bassy. Too bassy. Anyway. This way here is a shepherd to the king. Shepherd is to a king like sheep are to subjects. Oh, and if we throw in the word like and as, we could get either a simile or a metaphor. Hey, let's go the other way. It's easier to see the other way. Normally we move in the other direction for similes, don't we? Subjects are like sheep. It's our simile. Subjects are like sheep, says us when we hear somebody who doesn't believe in our conspiracy theories. That's the one they use, isn't it? Hey, you're just all sheeple. You're the sheeple. 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 Or use the word is instead of like. The subjects of the government we don't like are simply sheep. Or that shepherd is really good. He's a king. Metaphor. Or simile, he's like a king. So what? So if we find texts or dreams especially that use similes and analogies to communicate ideas, we can reverse engineer the analogy that was behind the thinking of the author, of the creator. If somebody is saying, hey, those subjects are like sheep, there's your analogy, like, we can say, hang on a second, let's draw that box. Or, yeah, draw that box like this and say, well, what's the equivalent term? Oh, he's thinking A is to B, shepherd is to sheep, as king is to subjects. And then he's taking what would that be? When you say the subjects are like sheep, you are saying D is to B as, so that's this way, D is to B as C is to A. Let me just get rid of this mess. It's a bit messy. It's a bit messy. Sound drop?
Butt to butt.
Yes. Thank you, Emma. No. Subjects are sheep. That's D is to B, which means on the other side. Therefore, you're saying the ruler of those people you're calling sheep is more like a shepherd, which is a diminishment. He's hoarding them around. Maybe he's going to lead them to slaughter. That politician is just treating them like sheep. He's going to fleece, take all their money through scams, fleece them. and lead them to slaughter in some war for the billionaire Epstein class for oil or some bullshit. So if we take the archetypal analogy, A is to B as C is to D, shepherd is to sheep as king is to people, what's this one called? Well, we have A on the other side, so we know there has to be some sort of invitendo, some sort of reaching across the side to the other side. The invitendo would be A is to C, the shepherd is to a king as B reaches over to D as sheep are to subjects. A is to C as B is to D. We don't have that yet, do we? Okay, so what else do we have to do? How are we going to get there? All right, so what happens if we do the converse of that? Flip each side around. Flip the shoes on each foot. Like that? A king is to a shepherd as subjects are to sheep. That's what they're saying, isn't it? Subjects are like sheep. They're saying this thing, but they're giving it to you. So we want it at the subjects are sheep to be first. So we have got the let's name them. Let's name these critters. We've got the verse. We reached over across. That's the inverted Nintendo. You reach over to the other side of the room to get the Nintendo off your brother because he's flipped it upside down. Inverted Nintendo. Then we have the converse of the invitendo, which is you flip your shoes. Converse. Oh my goodness, no space. Need space. Converse of the invitendo. Just flipping either on this side. Now what do we do? How do we get them on the other side? Can we do the invitendo of the converse of the invitendo? That would be so invitendo, C reaches over to grab D as A reaches over to grab B. Are we there yet? Not close, are we? All right, let's keep going. What else can we do? we could do the flip the shoes, so the converse of the invertendo of the converse of the invertendo. Surely there's an easier way than this. Let's see. So D is to C, flipping the shoes. That's what converse means. As B is to A. Okay. Let's do the... I got colors. Invertendo of the converse of the invertendo of the converse of the invertendo. So that would be D reaching over to that B as C reaching over to A. We got there. We got there. We got there. The invertendo of the converse of the inverse of the invertendo of the converse of the invertendo gives us subjects are like sheep analogy. I feel like I took an extra step that I didn't have to. I mean, it is that it works, but I'm sure there's an easier way of saying that. I wonder what it is. Let's have a look at the book. Anyway, I had fun. That's what's important. Yeah, it's the last one. No, it's not. It's this one. Oh, you know what I did? I did the invertendo first, and I should have done a converse first. It would have been a lot quicker. If I did the converse first, wait, yeah, converse first. No, hang on a second. We want to get to this one. We want to get to number 6, which is the invertendo of the converse. Yeah. The invertendo of the converse is number 5. And we did the converse of that. So it's the converse of the invertendo of the converse is what people, is the analogy style or permutation that is behind the thinking of people who say those people, those subjects are like sheep. Now, if you're wacky like me, and you have a wacky style. Speaking of wacky style, I'm not liking these new headphones at all. Maybe if I move them forward a little bit. Okay. Still not so great. So, the converse of the invertendo of the converse is what they're talking about. Another way of saying that is the invertendo of the converse of the invertendo of the converse of the invertendo. But that's taking extra steps because I didn't put converse first, I put invertendo first. So that's a good way of alienating anyone who might have dropped into this philosophy podcast. There's a whole bunch of weird words exploring an idea. But that's the fun you can have with analogy. So, like and as is just, well, this box shows us the possibilities. You can go that way and that way. giving us the 1, 2, 3, 4 different kinds, but then this way 1, 2, 3, and 4. But you can have the different starting terms. So you could be starting with this way and say shepherd is to sheep as a king is to subjects, or you could say king is to subjects, shepherd and to sheep. So there's 2 options. So four directions on the box, 2 ways of picking a starting term, 8 possibilities. And if you chuck in a like or an as, you have a simile or a metaphor. When you use those similes and metaphors in a story where there's some sort of task or puzzle, you've got an allegory. And last time we looked at the allegory of the cave and the upper world. So as a prisoner is to the shadows on the wall, you have to go through the text and find what's the equivalent. Prisoner is like, or yeah, what does a prisoner represent? Now, what's interesting about the cave and the upper world, there is another analogy within the allegory. Because as the lesser term, the lower world or the cave, as the cave is to the shadows on the wall of the cave, people who are still in the physical world only, still looking to their physical perception only, still operating through their beliefs only. In the same allegory, there is an upper world where they see animals. What else? Trees, nature, reflections in water. Where they see animals. Let's say animals. So within reality, there is a physical world and a world of mind or being that can be expressed in an analogy. And the allegory itself is an analogy depicting a journey or a task, leaving the cave to go into the upper world and then traversing to the end of the upper world. And we learnt reading involves looking for the analogies the author has created and then trying to work backwards, or work backwards to find the missing terms that he's pointing to in the text. That's how you solve the puzzle. I think that takes us to where we are. Okay, I need to pause for 1 second to turn on my fan, which is not on. So I'll be back in 1 moment. All right, we're back. We're back, and my fan is on. I need some coffee. All right. And there were a bunch of questions that we were asked to answer in the last couple of episodes as well. We looked at Okay, let's go to where we are. Similes and metaphors. Shepherd is like a doctor. Shepherd is like a ruler. Shepherd is like a captain. So there's a whole bunch. And then we were asked the question, what is the same? What's the class that all of these different what was the word? Class. No, there's another word. One more word. Oh, there's someone chatting. Sorry. Excuse me. Hyperborean. How these lives don't have more viewers is beyond me. Oh, wow. That's very nice of you to say. If you're still there, and if you're not, then I completely understand. I have been puzzling. We're learning about analogy, which is, of course, what we've been learning through reading this book, which is a goddamn banger. Perhaps top 5 books that everyone should read. Is it all relative? Really gets to the heart of the nature of all human problems and the crisis we're in, and helps us to understand our purpose, to move from belief-based thinking, which seems to be the cause of our problems, to be ruled by belief we learned is called being prejudice. And to do that, we require this catchphrase of our time: it's all relative. Why does Trump get to rule? Well, rulership is relative to his personal beliefs and opinion. Why does Elon Musk get all the money? Because his personal beliefs and opinion are not just what seems to be true for him, but they are true. Or it is knowledge. Or it is good. Same thing for religion. Capitalism, conservatism, and religion, all groups of people who claim their personal beliefs have some legitimacy for knowledge and rulership, goodness and benefit, and truth of reality. And all 3 of those groups, being ruled by belief, sweep death and destruction across the world. They can only do bad because belief fundamentally opposes all of the elements of what is good: understanding, reason, evidence, mastership, rulership. And because they can't do good and they can only do bad, instead of learning what we do here to overcome their inadequacies and and develop like we are supposed to, they celebrate or venerate that doing bad, which is why we ask the question, why don't any of these trillionaires solve world hunger? Why do, whenever conservatives get any power, why do they always want to kill or rape children? Or both? Or bomb people to death? Why are they always, hey, whenever a socialist or communist or a collectivist economy starts doing well, why do the conservatives or capitalists or religious have to come in and crush everyone and kill everyone and ruin it? Why do they only seek to do bad things? Oh, sadism. They desire what they consider to be good, what they desire as a mark of knowing and rulership, the only thing they can do, doing harm. And what we've been seeing is we have to learn what is required for actual just rulership. Whether it be a politician, leader of the economy, a doctor, a captain, a shepherd, either way, they're all in the class of rulership. And by understanding analogy, we can move from what we do know, belief, into what we've yet to move into, knowledge of a higher realm of existence called being or wisdom. The actual model of required for mastership of our soul, species, society, economy, spirituality, all of the things. to be able to apprehend the true model needed for rulership, mastership, and benefit. That's called wisdom. Not just to grasp it in the experience, but also to understand it. The grasping sometimes is called the enlightenment experience because you are seeing a different set of objects. You're not seeing the things you're used to seeing. Your images of your beliefs from projected onto the physical world, as portrayed in the cave analogy, projection of shadows on the wall of the cave. You're grasping different objects now. And we want to make sure that we use understanding to get there so that when we can grasp those objects, we can also make sense of them. It'd be pretty wild to have an enlightenment experience of a high dimension of reality and just use our stupid beliefs to make sense of them. I saw Allah. I saw Mother Mary. I saw Joseph Smith. I saw the Great Spaghetti Monster. Now I'm even more into my beliefs. We don't want that to happen. So, that experience and understanding together, wisdom. And we're asking the question here, what's that got to do with rulership? So, analogy, one of the primary ways, activities of understanding, the good thing that we can do. So, being one thing that all of these critters have in common is they have the knowledge of ruling. They have subjects to rule. This is what it means to be a ruler. And we're asking, what kind of knowledge must the ruler have to achieve a just rule? And if someone rules without that knowledge, would you not agree that the name ruler is misapplied? That's our question. Now, my stupid headphones, I have to turn the bass right down so it sounds decent in my ears. But that sounds garbage on the recording. I should be mucking around with this off stream. But what I will do in the meantime, so if we lack the kind of knowledge that a ruler must have to achieve a just rule, then we are misapplying the term ruler. So all those people who claim rulership under those categories which we have defined that are ruled by belief, or it's all relative, or prejudice, they're not rulers. We might even go one step further and say, hang on a second, if that's the case, why is it that all of our, well, not all, we demand actual understanding and knowledge for our mechanics and our doctors, but the big ones that are sweeping death and destruction across our planet and destroying our species and world, we still allow belief as a qualification for rulership. And all they do is horrific shit, always. So we might even go one step further and say, well, maybe that's the age we're in. Maybe this, the purpose of this age of development that we happen to be existing in ourselves, if you're watching this, is the age where we learn the necessity for understanding this. The analogy of rulership. Because if we don't, just always bad shit all the time. And that includes understanding how to name things. If someone is claiming to be a ruler without this knowledge of rule needed to rule justly, they ain't a ruler. Fascist, Nazi, capitalist, scammer, what would we call them? By the way, how many subjects are needed to be a ruler? 10,000? 10? Or only one? If a ruler can rule a state with only one subject, himself, then, well, that's not a question. That's just a statement. A ruler can rule a state then with only one subject, himself. And if the ruler rules with mastership, he should rule justly. What kind of knowledge must a ruler have to rule justly? And that leads us to Plato's Republic and which is about justice. And he creates a giant analogy as the city-state is to its parts, so too the human soul is to its parts, and how they should be arranged to give rise to a state of consciousness and being and functioning that we call justice. And rulership, of course. How do we reach that knowledge of being or wisdom such that we have the true knowledge and model required to rule our soul justly in a state of excellence? That's given to us in an allegory, an analogy with a drama. Then we looked at, you might actually want to go back a little bit to book 6. So the cave analogy is in book 7. He goes on after the cave and upper world allegory in book 7 to talk about 5 key subjects that a philosopher has to study, which are all analogies. So good thing we're learning about analogy, because these subjects, you have to find their analogy. But before the cave allegory, cave and upper world allegory, he gives a divided line analogy and analogies about the sun and sunlight in the physical world to something in the world of being that functions in a similar or like way. So you might want to read all of book 6 and book 7, says our author, to learn how to become just. But we have to also recognize the differences in the translations. We had a look at the different translations and how different they are. Not only are they different, they're wrong in different ways. Rouse says about the cave and upper world allegory. Next, then, I said, take the following parable as parable of education and ignorance as the picture of the condition of our nature. Jowett says the same line in the ancient Greek. Now I said, let me show you in a figure, not parable, figure, how far our nature is not education and ignorance, but enlightened and unenlightened. Taylor says, after these things now I assimilate with reference to erudition. The want of erudition, fancy word for learning, study, education, our nature as a condition as follows. So we might say, well, enlightened and unenlightened probably is the best, but that's probably not the original Greek. Now, figure in Jowett, nothing in Taylor, or parable in Rouse. Well, figure is kind of basic. So parable is a bit better, but parable is wrong. And then we looked at why parable is wrong. Because parable is expressed when we look at, Jesus defines parable. Parable is an allegory whose key terms are not revealed except to a select inner circle. Jesus says to his disciples, to you have been given the secret of the kingdom of God, but to those outside everything is in parables, lest they should turn and be forgiven. And last episode we had a look at those key words, turn and be forgiven. The word isn't forgiven. What were the key words? The word isn't sin. You're not evil, as modern Christians tell us. Interpreting false interpretations and interpretations, it's all relative. this guy's beliefs from this guy's beliefs from this guy's belief. The original Greek, the word is amartia, which means missing the mark. And there's a triad of key terms that are fundamentally mistranslated in modern Christianity from the ancient Greek. 3 key terms. So amartia and not sin. How different would our world be if modern Christians recognize problems as somebody missing the mark, compared to, oh, you made a mistake? I can fucking beat ya. I can put you in prison. I can bomb your ass, says the governments. I can enslave you, says the capitalists. I can genocide you, says the religious. I can beat you, says the parents and teachers. I can put you in prison, says our judges. I can fine you, says our bureaucrats. I can shoot you in the face, says our cops. Because you've sinned. And sin means you are innately bad as your nature, because the devil or some shit, that's just you being bad. Whereas missing the mark is about understanding. You've miscalculated. Like a real teacher, you've made a mistake in solving a math equation. You'd find where you made that mistake and help you learn so you could adjust your aim. How different would our world be? All of those fundamental things I just listed, which are all violent and savage, compared to our actual purpose, which is the mean analogy or anagogic analogy, to teach someone else how to hit the mark as you have learned. Our true purpose. Mastership. Rulership. Another key word, metanoia, to turn yourself around. That's the learning process, or what we call ousia and logos. To turn yourself around is the activity of ousia. So you can reorientate yourself with the logos. That's metanoia. I think the what's the redemption or what's the word in metanoia is translated in what's metanoia mistranslated as? Metanoia is translated in modern Christianity. I always have trouble with these ones. Repentance, that's right, repentance. Say you're sorry, feel bad, kneel at my feet. And if you do that, metanoia, repentance, mistranslation of reflect, turn yourself around, you will be forgiven. I will, as the authority over you, will declare that you are good now because you've suffered enough and you've subjugated yourself enough. You've made me feel like I'm in charge. It's disgusting, sadistic bullshit. When the real word is amartia, metanoia, and ephemi. Ephemi is when you let go of your problems. So, missing the mark, amartia, metanoia, turning yourself around, and ephemi, releasing yourself from your problems, would all apply to actual learning in the Hellenic way of doing it that we are learning here. It can apply to philosophy, dialectic, and midwifery. But of course, in the age we're in, we still haven't yet recognized the nature of belief as the root cause of all human problems, suffering, ignorance, and sadism. We have this false translation that we get in modern Christianity. But all religions have it. All systems of belief have to have some way of justifying the infliction of violence to perpetuate someone without the knowledge of rulership to be in charge. How do they get their authority? Violence. How do we accept violence? Punishment. Punishment is a lie that violence is good, actually, sometimes, when they deserve it. It teaches a lesson. Therefore, you have to have a mythology or a story, a worldview that somehow gets to the idea of punishment being legitimate. So you can justify violence, so you can oppress and have the worst people ruling the rest of us. And one way of doing that is problems are the devil or sin. And you solve problems by accepting abuse. That's repentance. Any sick shit the authority decides you deserve. And then they get to forgive you. Sin, repentance, and forgiveness, the most disgusting words in our language. Horrific words in our language. And central to any belief system that justifies rulership without actual knowledge and belief. Now, the same thing happens when we are reading the cave and upper world allegory and the divided line. As we've seen, these are the three main translators that academics have been using to understand Socrates and Plato for the last 2,000 years. Well, 1,500 years. They're all garbage. They're all shit. How can you solve the analogy if you don't have either the correct terms in the antecedent or the subsequent? You can't. You need both, obviously. Think about that. Think about a video game. Hey, look, the blue door. You have the blue key opens the blue door. Now you have to find the next door and key. So in the game, a red door. I know the significance of that because of the antecedent. The training stage of the video game, where they led me to a blue door and a blue key, and I could only move forward when I put the two together. Now, in how we've been understanding Socrates for the last 1,500 years, we get given instead of a blue door, we get given a grey ladder. On Rouse's translation, we get given a purple, hutch in Jowett, and Taylor gives us nothing. There's no door. He gives us a table. And most importantly, the correct terms to understand what he is really pointing to are in none. Ousia, logos, well, dialectic is in there, so phronesis isn't translated properly. Nous. In part because not one of these translators have ever gone through the process needed to A, learn real philosophy, the logos, and B, address their false beliefs that specifically function to block the logos, their pathologos. Not one of them. Therefore, and also another difficulty is most of those words don't have a direct English equivalent. There are some languages like Russian that don't even have the word the. So how can you go from a physical example of beauty to the beauty itself, the beautiful itself, without the word the? You need it necessarily. So there's that difficulty. And finally, there's the difficulty of many of those translators have lived in societies and times where believers ruled. Meaning, maybe the king wouldn't like you saying, well, Socrates showed us that you were bad actually, and beliefs are bad actually. So there are, but fortunately we can play the game because we have the Juan Balboa translations of these Platonic texts, which do have the ancient Greek, and we have these resources online where you can look up the ancient Greek yourself. And there are very, very accurate translations of them, of the Greek words, and sometimes he even keeps the ancient Greek because he has himself recognized that there isn't a good English word for this, so I'm going to keep the word ousia, or logos sometimes. So fantastic that by reading this book and this extra section on analogy, we have come to see the significance of the Juan Balboa translation. Oh, and parable is some sort of bitch-made thing where you don't tell the truth to most people. You keep a little secret for your inner club, which of course is stupid and bad. Like the Skull and Bones group. Yeah, we know the banking system. We know how capitalism is bad, but we're not going to tell everyone else because we are the billionaire Epstein class. Bullshit. Fuck you. Tell the truth. Stop doing parables and use allegories. Is what we would say to Jesus if we met him and he was around. We would say to him,
"You're a little bitch ass baby."
Maybe we would.
That was not on my bingo card.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not an idiot. That's what keeps you in the Matrix.
Okay, Emma, enough about the Matrix.
Come on, dude. That's too vulgar.
What? Okay, I'm getting roasted by my soundboard. Also, I have some double ups. Hang on, let me just fix this. Yep. That should work.
Jesus Christ, Emma.
Thank you. Someone's on my side. Jesus Christ, Emma. Jesus Christ, Emma. All right. Table of comparison. Oh, by the way, we got, don't just believe us or believe the author when we say this. Look it up. Look at the remark from Isaiah. There's a section in the Bible that in which Isaiah outlines this stuff about hiding the teaching. Would it be interesting in contrasting the two judgments side by side? When you do, we look into the word lest. What does it do in the sentence? Oh, my headphones just changed. What happened? Why did that happen? Why is it working? Maybe it's just my one ear. Just one of my ears is no good. I don't know. These headphones. What will follow if the truths were to be given freely for everyone? As our friend in the chat said a moment ago. How these live streams don't have more viewers is beyond me. Well, that's what we're doing, aren't we? We're giving it for free. Anyone can... Oh, that's kind of a bit better. Why is that? What is... Maybe if I don't know, does it take a while for headphones to start working good? Maybe I'll persevere. Maybe I'll stop talking about my headphones and start doing some goddamn philosophy, Emma?
Because woman.
Because woman?
Okay, well, I think you should suck my dick and balls. My metaphorical dick and balls.
Oh, okay. So long as it's metaphorical, that's good, because we're doing metaphors. Thank you so much.
I'm Benny Dorito. I'm cool. I'm a cool guy.
No, I don't think he's Benny Dorito. I don't think so. Consider this table. Oh, sorry. And the other puzzles. What would it mean if we gave this for everyone's benefit? What is the meaning of fulfilling a prophecy when the actions predicted are arranged to meet the terms of the prediction? So if this, after Jesus is, we did talk about earlier, the analogy of the sun that Socrates uses in the Republic to talk about the experience of wisdom, or mind knowing itself in the realm of mind, of being. And in the look at Mark is the original. The other, Luke and Matthew copies Mark, and John does his own thing to support Paul, who is trying to set up himself in charge. So modern Christians are Pauline, but ignoring that, if you look at the story of Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, there is a brilliant light of being experience, after which what did we say earlier today? It would suck if you had a experience of enlightenment and you hadn't been learning this, the difference between belief and understanding, and you made sense of your peak experience through your beliefs. What would it mean if there was a prophecy given in Isaiah that after Jesus's brilliant light of being experience, he arranged his life to meet that prediction? Would it be authentic? Would it be evidence of what? Is it a true prophecy if it's being reverse engineered in that kind of a way? Are some questions that we can we'll find answers to, that the author is giving us. Oh my goodness, I hope the audio is sounding good. I think I'm going to send these headphones back. When an allegory is both political and comical, it's called a satire. So use an analogy to everything that we've been saying here about what's needed for a rulership. You can make a story about a shepherd who, tries to eat all the grass that the sheep are supposed to be eating. Isn't that a comical image? If you're making that kind of analogy to talk about the king or ruler or president, that's satire. To use analogies with a story or task, that's funny. So funny images to show the absurdity of what's happening in your political world or in your society, that's satire. But we'll highlight that. That's a good quote. What happens? Do I have a... Yes. Okay, next. 2x2 table of comparison. Consider this table. Oh, good thing we reviewed that square of the of understanding the terms in analogy, because now we've got another square. We call this a 2x2 table of comparison because using it as our model, we can compare either by rows, columns, or diagonally. Oh, we can compare by rows, columns, or diagonally. Rows, A is to B, as C is to D, that's the rows. Columns, wait, hold for a second, I just pause. All right, so now that we can draw on the book, can we? Yes. Columns. As A is to C, downwards, so to B is to D, downwards. Why won't it stay? Hang on. I paused for the recording on the YouTubes. So if you want to see the nonsense in between everything, then watch the VOD on Twitch. If you want a more clean version where I pause to do silly things, then watch it on YouTube. So, columns. A is to C, as B is to D. Can I make the line thicker? Just when you thought I was finished with my nonsense. Can I make the line thicker? I guess not. Alright, get it. Diagonals. A is to D, as B is to C. And they also have the reverse. Now, we said you can't do diagonals. That was the same thing as our square. You have 8 terms because you've got that 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you just put the starting to the antecedent or the consequent. You can swap them around, so you got 8 possible combinations. And we couldn't go diagonally. So let's see if he says that here. Consider this table. You could compare the diagonals if you wanted to. Consider the 12 ways of relating and exhausting the combinations within a 2x2 table. Now let us take an example from Socrates' speech on love found in the Plato's Symposium. We were considering doing this symposium next. I don't know. There's so many things we need to read that are so good. But the Symposium is a method for enlightenment following the yoga or process of love. So, teacher is to student. Diatema is to Socrates, is the first one. A is to B, and C is to D. Socrates is to Agathon. You can reflect and compare the relations between Diatema and Socrates. This one. Relationships between Socrates and Diatema. Socrates and Diatema. The relationship of Socrates and Agathon down the bottom. And the relationship between Agathon and Socrates. Yeah, teacher and student, pretty much. Socrates as a student and Socrates as a teacher. Oh, I see. There's... What? Okay. Diatema and Socrates. Oh, gosh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Diatema and Socrates as teachers. Socrates and Agathon as students. And the gap that exists between Diatema and Agathon. Right, okay, so previously we couldn't do comparisons along the diagonal, but here he is saying you can compare, but just it's not an analogy. If you're talking about how Agathon relates to, or Diatema relates to Agathon, you are talking about the gap, because they don't relate. If we were saying A is to B as C is to D, shepherd is to sheep as king is to subjects, the shepherd has no relationships to the subjects of the city. You can't go diagonally, A is to D. Equally so, the sheep have no relation to the king. King don't care about sheep. But he's saying here, you can make this comparison so long as the comparison is to see that there is a gap between Diotima and Agathon. Or what you're comparing is the same person. So in a mean analogy, there is a sameness or a comparison because it's the same dude. He's just functioning in different sets in different ways. So you'd be, I guess, comparing his growth. Why are there only 8 relations shown here instead of the 12 as previously mentioned? Why are there only, why? Why? What? Okay, we got these two. 1 and 2. We got back the other way. Socrates to Diotima and Agathon to Socrates. Socrates. And now we've got up and down. Oh, because Diotima to Socrates is doubled up. Okay. Right, because we're repeating ourselves by going that way. And back the other way. Socrates to Diotima, Agathon to Socrates. We're repeating ourselves. We've already got Agathon to Socrates, and we've already got Agathon to Socrates, and Socrates to Diotima. So yeah, they're all doubling up. When it's a mean analogy, when there's one person doing double duty like Socrates here, we are just repeating ourselves, aren't we? So we've got the 4 of the regular mean analogy, but then we got 4 more. Socrates as student and Socrates as teacher. Let's get rid of this mess. Socrates as student, Socrates as teacher is a different one because it's just taking one term. You're comparing this direction and this direction. So we've got, the change is we're not comparing the regular relationships. We're comparing the term in 2 different sets. Socrates going back as a student and Socrates going forward as a teacher. That's a new one. Diotima and Socrates as teachers. Well, we had Diotima and Socrates as teachers here and here. Ah, but we're not talking about them. Oh yeah, this would be teacher and this would be teacher. I guess here he's saying we can compare them as teachers in the quality of teachers. When in this first one, the relationship between Diotima and Socrates is teacher, so we're defining the relationship. The relationship between Socrates and Agathon is teacher to student. So that's teacher to student is the relationship. But here you're saying now you can just compare them not as teacher to student, just as teachers. Who was the best kind of teacher? What was the difference in how they taught? So you're comparing the terms. Socrates and Agathon as students, same thing. So Socrates and Agathon as students would be this one, number 2, and this one, number 4. But again, you're not talking about them, you're not discovering their relationship, you're talking about the quality of that functioning. And finally, the last thing to compare is these 2 guys, And the way that you compare them is there's a gap. Diotima never meets Agathon. So for context, in the Symposium, Socrates gives a speech to Agathon about love. The story is, it's the day after their equivalent of the Oscars or whatever, the celebrations for the greatest playwrights, comic playwriters, and tragic playwriters, and they got wasted the night before, and they decided to meet up and get wasted again. And as part of the festivities, by the way, when they get wasted, they drink alcohol and psychedelics. They never had one without the other. If you too much alcohol and not enough flour, then you get stupid and aggressive and dumb. Too much flour and not enough alcohol, then you get quiet and contemplative. Too quiet and contemplative and not social enough. So that's and they all shared from the same bowl. So the person handing out the bowl would pass it around. So everyone's getting equally buzzed. Is how they party back in the day. So you don't have someone going crazy and then ruining it for everyone else, or someone not participating and being a wet blanket or whatever. Anyway, they decided to give speeches about love and beauty, and because they all had just won awards for comedy and drama, and as playwrights, they all consider themselves experts or knowledge of beauty and love. And Socrates goes last. And his speech involves talking to Agathon, who crashes the party. He wasn't invited. Well, he wasn't there at the beginning. He was just like the hottest person in Athens that everyone else fancied. And he showed up with his crew, and he was acting really drunk. And he wanted to sit next to Socrates. That made everyone jealous. And Socrates gave a speech about what beauty and love was. But it was an account of how he learnt about love and beauty from his teacher, Diotima. Therefore, Diotima taught Socrates as Socrates is now teaching Agathon. Or us, if you like, as the reader. So that's the context. So Diotima never meets Agathon. That's that gap. You can compare how well was Socrates in being a student to Diotima compared to how well Agathon was a student towards Socrates. That's the new one that we're adding. Who was the more diligent student? Who was the better teacher, Socrates or Diotima? So Socrates and who was the better teacher? Who was the better student? The gap that exists, and the other new term. Hey, Socrates as a student and Socrates as a teacher. What does that allow us to compare? Development, growth, insight, maturity, personal development, spiritual development. So why are there only 8 translations here instead of the 12 as previously mentioned? Why was the 12 mentioned? Was it 12 mentioned, was there? Oh, yes. Right, so the square gives us, let's count them. So we went. So one of the answers is because that was a mean analogy. This is the archetypal analogy, which has 4 terms. So this. Whoops. This way to this way. Shepherd is to sheep. As king is to subjects. That's 1. Back the other way. Sheep is to shepherd. As subjects is to king. That's 2. Now just swap it. It's not swap it around. Say the same thing, but start with. So 1 and 2. Start with king is to subjects as shepherd is to sheep. Same direction, but you're starting with this. You're starting with the other one first. So every direction we can say times 2. This way and this way. That's 1 and 2. We've got sheep is like subjects as shepherd is like king, and back the other way. Subjects are like sheep as king is like shepherd. That gives us 3 and 4. And of course, double up that as well. Times 2 for both of them. Because you could start, instead of saying sheep are like subjects, you like shepherd is to king, you could say shepherd is to king like sheep is the subject. Just switch whichever one you start with. So that gives us 8. So that's times 2 times 2. 8 possible ones. Those are the ones that you can use. And then there are the diagonals that don't work. So far we've got 8 good ones. And the diagonals that don't work. What color? Sheep is to king as subjects are to shepherd. Wait. King is to sheep as shepherd is to subjects. And back the other way. Subjects are to the shepherd as king is to the sheep. So that gives us 5 and 6 times 2. That gives us an extra 4. There's our 12. So there are 12 possible ways of doing an analogy that the box shows, 8 which work and 4 which don't work. So what happens with the mean analogy is, because we've got some double ups here, we don't have those. So we start, because they're doubling up. Let's do another box. Another box. No. Box. A is to B as B is to C. Socrates is doing 2 roles. So the first one, A is to B as B is to C. That's good. And of course you can go the other way. So same thing, same direction. Oops. But you can put B is to C first. You could start with the bottom one and then do the top one. That's our times 2. So B is to C as A is to B. Go back the other way. Back the other way. B is to A as missing double dots. Excuse me. Excuse me, Emma.
Bitch.
Hey.
Calm your fucking tits.
Calm your tits. I was going to say that. Oh my God, we think the same. Calm your tits, Emma. That was a bit harsh.
Jesus Christ, Emma, this is not Opie and Anthony or whatever the hell.
Thank you. It's not. So calm down, Emma.
You're gay if you don't give me everything that's in your wallet right now.
No, Emma, that's not an appropriate reaction to everyone telling you off. Calm down. So, B is to A as, so this direction. C is to B. But that direction and that direction. C is to B. Same thing, but start with the C is to B first. Start there and then do B is to A. Now, if we do the other sides, A is to B on this side here, as B is to C. And of course, vice versa, B is to C this side first, as A is to B. And then finally, what color? Let's do yellow. Back the other way. B is to A as C is to B. B is to A as C is to B. And then starting with the C is to B first as B is to A. There you go. Oh, what happened? Because it's a mean analogy. Look, it's the same. Look, they fit over each other. Oh my God, they're the same. So we don't have that original 8. We only have 4. Because they are the same. So, and then we add the diagonals. B is to B. What's Socrates like as a student and as a teacher? B is to B. And then diagonal the other way. We're going to run out of colors. Oh my goodness. All right, let's just use green for all of them. A is what other ones do we have? What's Socrates like as a teacher and a student? So slow. Drop a sound drop.
When you're in a state of wanting to improve, you start perceiving all of the problems.
Start perceiving the problems. That's the game. Because that's what we're doing here, right? We are seeking to improve. This is a little fun thought exercise, but we are improving. We are developing the activity of understanding, which is the activity we're supposed to be moving into. It's a tool and skill we can use forever and for always. And if we practice it all the time, we can not only learn it, but nurture it into our soul and take it with us beyond this lifetime. Because these patterns and principles we're learning apply always to any multiverse, dimension, time, reality, cosmos, reincarnation you find yourself in. So we are seeking to improve. As such, we will recognize the thoughts, distractions, tangents, feelings, states of mind, voices that tell us that we're not good enough, this is too stupid, we can't do it, all that kind of crap. Our problems will come up. So this is us learning the logos, but also surfacing our pathologos beliefs that counterattack. That's the game. So as we have fun doing there, make sure you've got a notepad or an app where you can take notes of all of those things, thoughts, words, voices, states of mind, feeling states, dramas, because just as we are using allegory to understand the nature of mind, reality, self, and understanding, so too, once you've collected enough clues or material or terms and relationships to do with that negative voice, we can use what we're learning about analogy, metaphors, similes, and allegory to unpack those as well. Because the stories that they tell you about yourself ain't literal. You're not really a piece of garbage. That's a metaphor to talk about someone else, or a message. Your states of mind are similes. Your state of mind when you listen to that voice is like your state of mind when you first learned that teaching. The distractions and tangents and fantasies that play out to take you away from this learning of the logos uses those states of mind, uses those images and characters, similes and metaphors, in a story that you get wrapped up in, that we call a daydream, that modern psychologists call ADHD. Bull fucking shit. It's the pathologos. It's not because you're sick and you can't pay attention to teachers under capitalism teaching you to be a fucking worm. No. Be a slave to capitalist. Our education is informative. Memorize these tables or whatever for an exam so you can go on and build weapons for sadists who will kill children all around the world for profit. Children don't want to do that, not because they are sick, because the education is sick. The education should be about the tangents or that come up to distract them from whatever they're doing, presuming it's meaningful in the first place, which it often isn't. We should be learning about beliefs and about analogy so we can unpack the messages they're giving, not drug people up with ADHD medicine to power through it or zombify them enough so they're not paying attention. There is a meaning to those thoughts, those distracting thoughts and tangents and things. Or as the Oracle says,
when you're in a state of wanting to improve, you start perceiving all of the prop.
I think I didn't get that quite right. Problems. Did she say problems or prob?
When you're in a state of wanting to improve, you start perceiving all of the problem.
Problem. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. That's the point. So, take notes so you have the terms and even the relationships, because you're feeling the relationship. You'll notice that you become one of the main characters in those allegories. It's you having an argument at the store or with your boss in your fantasy and distraction. That's the game. The two things we said that the translators have to do: learn the logos to translate Socrates properly, and also address their pathologos, which specifically functions to block that activity, to project their beliefs, their misinterpretations. Why did Rouse say parable? Well, if I was a betting man, I'd go to all those gambling apps that are all destroying our fucking society, because that's all we can do is gamble now under fucking capitalism. Go to one of those gambling companies or whatever and say, oh, I bet $10 the reason Rouse translated allegory as parable is he grew up Christian, I'm guessing, because that's a fucking Christian game. As Jesus was imitating Isaiah, because he didn't address his family and cultural and religious beliefs, so such that he made sense of his peak experience according to his beliefs and not the logos of understanding. So, as is for translator, so too for reader. There's another analogy. Hooray!
A massive library of spank material.
Well, yeah, and if this library of analogies gives you spank material, then Emma, calm down.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
Some gooner weirdos. So too we also are learning the logos and will surface those problems that arise. We collect them, we take notes, and then as we learn about analogy, we apply it to them to unpack the messages that they are sending you about your false image of self, reality, understanding, and mind, such that as you learn the truth through analogy about self, reality, understanding, and mind, you have to purify this one because that functions to stop the other one. You can't carry false beliefs about dogs and cats being girls and boys, and they get married, and also learn the understanding of how animal husbandry actually works to be a vet. You can't. One will fight against the other. You can't carry an image of yourself based on belief and discover the self through understanding. They fight against you. Well, belief functions to fight against. That's the nature of humanity. All human conflict is nothing other than an allegorical expression of belief fighting against the development of mind through understanding. That's every fascist, religious leader, capitalist who's taken money away from education, or burnt libraries, or killed academics, or impoverished and enslaved people so that they don't have time to learn about what's happening to them. It's always a war on mind of belief against understanding. That's the whole game. That's the whole thing. That's the whole show. As above, so below. As we go through this ourselves, we can use analogy to see, oh, this is also the story of humanity. As it is for the collective, so for the individual. Or another analogy. As human beings are here to discover this, so too any intelligent being at this stage of evolution. Which is why it has to be the meaning of life, because it's universal.
When you're in a state of wanting to improve,
You start perceiving all of the problem.
Or the problem. I'll fix that one. Right, so worth noting, worth being aware of. Thank you once again, Oracle.
but you're a woman, like, sweet tits. Hello.
Hello, don't. I give Oracle a compliment and she says that I'm sweet tits. That's hardly very feminist.
Bitch.
Calm down.
All these people are so stupid.
Oh my goodness. So, Socrates as a student, Socrates as a teacher, Diotima and Socrates as teachers. So, what are we doing? The new relationships we're discovering are Socrates as a student, as Socrates as a teacher. B is to A, Socrates as a student up here, B is to A. As B is to C. Oops. That's not on the board. It's not an analogy. Was it? Different relationships. Because it's this way and this way. Different directions. What else do we have? Diotima and Socrates as teachers. So we'll get this color. But as Diotima is A is to B, as a teacher, so oh yeah, it's the same direction, isn't it? Same direction as B is to C, which is the first analogy, isn't it? So what's the difference? We're not talking about them. So with these diagonals, well, with these extra ones, we're not talking about them. The relationship, we're talking about the quality of A as teacher is to the quality of B as teacher. Just as previously. What a strange puzzle. B is to A as B is to C. That's B as a student is to B as teacher. So we're comparing individual terms. Socrates and Agathon as students. Socrates as a... Let's give different colors. Give purple. Socrates as a student to Agathon. That's B as a student. Is to Agathon. Same direction. Student. Who was the better student? So we're comparing individual terms with this new set. And finally, the difference between Diotima and Agathon. So now we're doing the diagonal. Agathon, or A Diotima, as a whole, as a person, as different from C Agathon. So have we compared every single term? We got, let's see. We got Agathon is to Socrates. Diotima is to Socrates, A is to B, and A is to C. Got Socrates as to himself as a different role, B is to B. And we got Socrates as to the student. Yep. So we got Socrates as to Agathon. Yeah. And Agathon, does he meet everyone? Agathon meets Diotima by saying they don't connect. Agathon meets Socrates as well as students. So we're comparing samenesses and differences, aren't we? Socrates is the same person, but different roles. Diotima as a teacher is the same as Socrates as a teacher, but different types of teachers. This one here. Socrates as a student is the same as Agathon as a student, but did well differently. So samenesses and differences. Diotima and Agathon have no sameness, only differences. That's the gap. So why over here did we say there were 12 possibilities, 8 which work and then an extra 4 that don't in the diagonals? So we have 12 possible combinations over here, but we only have 8 here. Well, we got rid of these 4 because it's a mean analogy and they double up. So those 4 give us the original 8 over in the regular analogy. And the extra 4 were diagonals to demonstrate that you can't say a shepherd is to subjects as a king is to sheep, because they're disconnected, like Diotima is disconnected from Agathon. So those extra 4 here were to make the 12, were to give the extra combinations that you could make in a archetypal analogy that don't actually work. Whereas the extra 4 here aren't about diagonals at all. The extra 4 here were the four possible combinations of the different terms. To compare sameness and differences within the terms. So does that work? 3. You got 3 terms. And what are how many ways can you connect them? 1. No, we got 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, all the ways of connecting the full terms. I think that's right. Let's see what the book tells us. Why are diagonals allowed here but were judged as invalid within the 4 terms? Well, there were no diagonals here. Well, there was one, and it was to show that Diotima and Agathon were different. I guess you could say there was a diagonal relationship here as well when you compared Socrates as a student to teacher, but we didn't do it as a diagonal. We did it as this here, B as a student and B as a teacher. So yeah, he might be counting that as a diagonal, I suppose, because you are connecting those two, aren't you? But we're not. So why is there a diagonal that's allowed? Because we are showing that the difference they don't connect. So it's allowed only to show that it doesn't work. or the disconnected. Whereas in the archetypal analogy, we didn't allow the diagonals because it's not a valid analogy, is it? Examine the way Socrates, Agathon, and Diotima are described in the Symposium. Reflect on the characters in the myth. That's interesting. If I go there and if I go here it works. Maybe if it's... Well, that's a bit better. Maybe I was just having it on my head wrong. Why is it... That's muffled, that's muffled, that's clear, that's clear, that's clear. Go back on my head. Oh my word, I'm still messing with my headphones. I apologize. I'm trying to get it to sit on my ears right. Anyway. Why are diagonals allowed here, but were... Yes. Examine the way Socrates, Agathon, and Diotima were described in the Symposium. Reflect on the characters in the myth that Socrates uses to explain the origin of love. Alright, so explain the way Socrates, Agathon, and Diotima were described in the Symposium. That will help us in answering these questions, because they're talking about not their relationship, but the descriptions of them, themselves as individual people or terms. Reflect on the characters in the myth that Socrates uses to explain. Oh, so he does an allegory. Socrates creates an allegory himself, or when the allegory uses divine characters, that's called a myth. So reflect on the myth that Socrates uses to explain the origin of love, poverty, plenty, Aphrodite, and love. So poverty, plenty, Aphrodite, and love were characters that he used to use analogy or myth to describe the origin of love itself. Is love important? Where's love come from? Can you find similarities between these two sets of characters? What would it mean if the characters in the dialogue could be candidates for being similar to the figures in the myth? Characters in the dialogue, candidates for being... Oh, I see. So, can you find an allegory happening between the characters in the dialogue and the figures in the myth? Is the author creating two allegories? Can they? What would it mean? If there are several ways in which these characters in the dialogue and the myth can be similar, are there some differences that eliminate some of these possibilities? So there's going to be sameness and difference. Which, zoom in.
Coming at you rock hard.
Hey, calm down.
I think you're a babe.
Oh my goodness, everyone's so goony today.
Goon.
Oh, I don't want to use that word goony. That's crazy.
Just like use your brain for a second.
I gotta use my brain for a second. Sorry about that. I meant to press this button. Helps us with these different terms. Why? We were comparing sameness and differences. So maybe, what is it? Poverty, plenty, Agathon, and love. Maybe Socrates is like one of them. In some ways, but in some ways not. There's going to be some sameness and differences. That's what analogy is all about. If it was identical, it wouldn't be an analogy. And we looked at that earlier, didn't we? Remember that after plenty passes out on nectar in Zeus's garden, poverty seduces him and conceives love. How could that be similar to what takes place in the garden? What? After Plenty passes out on nectar in Zeus's garden. So the story is they're in the garden because there's a party. There's a party happening when Beauty was born in heaven. Aphrodite was born. Plenty passes out in the garden outside the party. Poverty, who couldn't come in, seduces Plenty. Plenty's a boy. Poverty's a girl. And they conceive of love. How could that be similar to what takes place in the garden? In the garden. I think he means what takes place in the Symposium. By the way, did Socrates pass out before arriving at the house of Agathon? If he did, you can make some connections. If he didn't, you can notice some differences that might highlight some things. If you like puzzles of this kind, then you are taking on the task of treating Plato's myths as allegories, which can provide you with an additional level of meaning for these dialogues. Every myth in Plato has interesting meaning well worth discovering, and most can fit together in a mosaic that contains the journey of the philosopher. So we've been talking about finding the analogies in the Republic. Got a whole bunch in book 6 and 7, of course. And the whole book, the book as a whole, is an analogy. City-state is to the soul. The Symposium, we can do this solving puzzles by using our understanding we've been developing of analogy. And he's saying, hey, if you take, not only can you add a level of meaning, like solve the puzzles that you are being given to solve, play the fun game, but you can take all of these analogies and fit them into a mosaic that would represent the journey, your journey as philosopher, the journey of man. Before leaving this subject, let me ask, what significance have you discovered in Diotima's remark to Socrates that the children of a philosophical relationship can be said to rival not only the poets, but Homer and Hesiod? So, if you do take to heart what we've been discovering here in this book about the true relationship, a philosophical relationship, philodinoia, love and logos, not a love of playing out the images of our beliefs together in dynamics that solidify our ignorance of our beliefs, regular relationships, but true relationship, love based on understanding and a development of understanding and a shared goal of the philosopher's journey, movement from ignorance to wisdom and beyond. Then Diotima remarks to Socrates in the Symposium that what you give birth to in those relationships are not physical children, but works. Works that can rival not only poets, but what are considered the absolute best and most divinely inspired, Homer and Hesiod. That's the kind of things that creations that you can give birth to in your life. What works today would you mention that would be similar to the works of Homer and Hesiod in Socrates' day? Now, we don't think of Homer and Hesiod as divinely inspired spiritual texts. We have our own in our age, don't we? What would you call the most well-known books which contain myths and things that people think are messages about the nature of reality, our spiritual journey, and the nature of God and love? Again, what would it mean if the nature of reality is such that only the mind can see it or encounter it? Let's highlight that, because that's a fucking banger of a line. The nature of reality is such that only the mind can see or encounter it. What does that say about all of our physical senses? What would it mean for What would it mean for there to be some relationship between mind and reality? Is beauty an idea, capital I? Idea, eidos, one of the aspects of reality or mind, or the reality that's encountered by mind, one of its qualities or aspects. But is an idea of beauty merely a thought or concept? That's the opposite. So what would it be like to make sense of beauty in the cave of shadows and ignorance and beliefs and physical senses? Just merely a thought or concept? It's all relative, pointing to the title of the book up there. Or is beauty actually something of the gods, like Socrates demonstrated with Aphrodite, an aspect of reality, or eidos, or capital I idea in English, if you don't want to use the word eidos, but I think we should. A way of understanding that eidos idea in Plato is not merely a thought, but something to be, so not meaning, so an idea in Plato. By the way, one more note on how terribly Plato has been mistranslated by academics over the last 1500 years. You might have heard of Plato's forms. The word form is one of the bullshit translations of this word capital I idea. So not only is it not using the word idea, it's going even lower by saying it's a form, which sounds like a physical shape or something. Couldn't be further from the truth. So again, the importance of reading the Balboa and even using certain Greek words that don't have an English equivalent. So the idea in Plato with a capital I is not merely a thought, but something to be realized, and that only after much reflection can be seen in the idea of beauty in the Symposium. So there's our experience, or mind knowing reality, or turning ourselves around. What was the word for that? I keep forgetting these. I got it. Metanoia. Metanoia. Old. So turning ourselves around, or yes, metanoia. So amartia, you missed the mark. Our beliefs. We engage in this kind of self-reflection to turn ourselves around and adjust our aim, both in experience and reflecting on that experience, and done along with addressing our beliefs. Well, by doing that, addressing your beliefs, you dissolve them. So the Greek in the Bible or Gospel of Mark, amartia is when you miss the mark. That's the pathologos. Metanoia, you change your mind and reorientate yourself. You reflect on what you've been doing and you turn around. There's your ousia and logos. And aphemi. You can let go of your problems. You can let go of your beliefs. Mistranslated as sin, repentance, and forgiveness. The exact opposite of what they mean. Just as the translation of the word eidos is given its exact opposite in academic philosophy. Isn't that interesting? It's almost as though all human beings, even if they have a PhD in front of their name, or even if they translated Plato, have the same human problems. Makes you think. Therefore, in a philosophical relationship, you will be doing those things. Perfecting the logos and purifying the pathologos, both of which happens through the development of understanding. Therefore, giving rise to works that would rival Homer, Hesiod, or whatever you think would be the modern equivalent. Philosophical relationship, love and logos. So, realized and reflected on. Need both. Need the peak experience, and you need the reflection in the afterglow. You can see the aspect of beauty in that experience. Just as you have the experience of reading the Symposium and you reflect on it with us or like-minded people, and then you can see the idea of beauty in the Symposium, says the book here. What would you be doing if you were to see yourself going up through the steps that lead to beauty? What would be happening to you? Examine how the notion of bringing to birth plays itself out in the steps leading to beauty. So there are different kinds of bringing to birth that happen as you perceive higher and higher levels of beauty along with your beloved in this method. Can you find 4 kinds of birth? So he's really helping you out. He's really helping you out if you actually get into the Symposium. So we might actually end up doing it here. We will at some stage, but maybe we should do the Republic first. Maybe we should do the Symposium. I don't know. But again, Balboa translation. You can find it for free online. If you only found 3... So, in the stages of perceiving higher levels of beauty outlined in the Yoga of Love and Beauty in the Symposium, are there 4 levels of giving birth? If you only found 3, you're missing one worth noticing. Or as the Oracle's telling us today,
When you're in a state of wanting to improve, you start perceiving all of the problems.
that whatever one you miss would be a problem that you can value perceiving. Why did I miss that one? What's that telling me about what I have to let go of? Because if I missed one, I have amartya, not sinned, missed the mark. I shan't be flagellated or bombed or sent to hell or any of that bullshit believers say, which is all just Paul's ignorance. Amartya, missed the mark. I wonder what philosophical midwifery I have to do to metanoia, turn around and reflect so I can adjust my aim. And then when I see what was the fundamental pathologos belief that was blocking me seeing the other term that I missed, well, once you've got the lesson, ephemi. Not forgiveness, but letting go. See how the sin, repentance, and forgiveness are a bastardized mistranslation and in service of sadism and belief and oppression? It's almost as though the problems we carry, we project even on our mistranslations, as these translators do, or as we preach to whatever congregation that you are preaching sin, forgiveness, repentance, or any sort of punishment. You are ruling others unjustly as you are ruling your soul unjustly. Therefore, worth developing or finding someone and developing this kind of true philosophical relationship. And you might be able to present your findings in your own analogy and myth and allegory. And those works may rival Homer, Hesiod, or whatever you would consider the modern equivalent. Can you find 4 kinds of birth? If you only found 3, you missed one worth noticing. What culminates the journey to beauty? What's the end? What position does the person who ascended those steps finally reach? Position, person, ascends, final steps. The steps finally reach. What do you get at the end of the journey of true love via love and logos? Now let's consider the analogy from the Republic. So that was a good place to call it for today. interesting puzzles, puzzling out the different ways of using this table of comparison for a mean analogy, and comparing it to our square of the archetypal analogy that we looked at earlier. Where's our square? There we are. Yeah. Square of analogy. W episode. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Malik. First time chatter, I see. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed what you watched. If you want to get a notification when we go live, you're welcome to join the Discord. You can find a free PDF of the text below. If you want to buy me a coffee, there's also a link to that below. And what else do I say at the end of the episodes? Oh yes, everything that you've been discovering about how to look for analogies, unpack them, and apply it to your most meaningful spiritual goals, and the false beliefs that get in the way of that, do it to your dreams too. The dreams that you have tonight after this episode, you can test all of these techniques on that. So, as soon as you wake up, hit record before you do anything else. Before you even go to the bathroom, hit record on your app on your phone that does voice recording, and say anything that you remember about your dream. You can then translate the audio. There's an activity. Leave it. Later on in the day, type it up from memory and then transcribe the audio. And then there are, I use TurboScribe. There are websites that do pretty good audio translations into text for you. Compare your memory from the audio and you'll notice some things. Same question, right? What was the question? If you remembered 3 things, but there were 4 things that you should have remembered, or that you could have remembered, there might be, what did he say here? If there were 4 things and you only remembered 3, the missing one is worth. Huh? Yes, it's. Oh, find it. Can't see it. 4. Oh yes, 4 kinds of birth. Yeah. So similarly, if you notice that there was something you missed out in your memory, make that a puzzle. Write it down somewhere. Wonder about it. And then apply this unpacking of analogy to find the meaning to your dreams and see what it's telling you, either about your reading and development of the Logos, reading these books we're talking about, or your discovery to surface and understand the unsuspected false beliefs about beauty, love, reality, mind, and wisdom that you've been carrying since childhood from your earliest belief teachers, not Diotima or Socrates, philosophy teachers, or Pierre Grimes, the author we're reading, but when you were too young to know better. Who played king priest of the house when you were 3 years old and you were dependent on certain people to live? What is your dream telling you about those things? So, exciting stuff. Yeah. Republic and Symposium. We will have to get into that at some stage on this channel too. Hope you're having fun. Thank you for dropping a message. And I hope to see you in the next one.